Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, personality disorder expert, and body language expert, and today we're going to be talking about the body language of narcissists. So today we're going to talk all about the body language you're going to see from narcissists and how to interpret it. So if you want to keep learning more about body language and narcissism, I highly recommend you like and subscribe because I talk about these subjects a lot. I want you to understand, before we talk about narcissists specifically, how body language works. This is super important to understand. Body language is unconscious and involuntary. Obviously, we can voluntarily control what we do, but the vast majority of body language that matters is not voluntary. It just happens on its own, and each time it happens, it's trying to fulfill some kind of need. Oftentimes, we try to calm ourselves with body language. Like if I start rubbing my face or I start rubbing my neck, I'm trying to soothe myself. Okay? If I stand, put my hands on my hips, I'm trying to take up a lot of space to show everybody how dominant I am. There's many things related to survival that are integrated into body language. And if you know how to spot those, you can understand what they are, and you can know how you should react to it. This is all based on the idea of what we call emotional leakage. In other words, that emotions that we experience are going to leak out in our body language. And so when you see somebody who furrows their brow, obviously that's anger. It's not like you think, I'm going to furrow my brow because I'm angry. It just happens because you feel anger. All of these things are going to happen just because that's what you think and feel. So if you're dealing with a narcissist, think about it this way. This is someone who is chronically grandiose. They want to take up as much space as possible. They want to show how dominant they are. And that's what we're going to see. So let's look at different parts of the body and different behaviors that narcissists are going to engage in order to create a dominant and grandiose atmosphere. One thing I want to be super clear about: don't overinterpret. These are basic ideas. I don't want you to say universally, you said this, therefore that's what it always means. I'm just telling you things you often see with people that are narcissists. So let's go from head to toe and talk about the different things that you're going to see narcissists engage in. The face is one that is very challenging to interpret sometimes because the face is easy to manipulate. Now, if you know what you're looking for, you can see involuntary sort of issues. But if we want somebody to think that we're happy, we're going to smile. Now, it's not going to come across as genuine if you're not feeling it, but this is something that we're going to see with narcissists, as we're going to see fake smiles, because they're going to be trying to manipulate and make you feel something. A real smile, we're going to see wrinkling around the eyebrows. But if you see somebody smile and there's none of that, then they're just trying to smile. When somebody crosses their arms and smiles like this, they may be feeling hostile. So when they smile and you say, "Why are you so angry?" They'll go, "Oh, I'm not angry, I'm smiling. I feel fine." And it's not a real smile, and it's passive aggressive, and it's frustrating. Here's another one that's kind of interesting. Almost all emotions are what we call bilateral on the face. In other words, both sides are going to express it. So if I'm sad, you're going to see it on both sides. If I'm happy, you're going to see it on both sides. Contempt is the one exception. When someone feels contempt, it's seen on one side of the mouth. So if somebody, smiles with one side, they may be trying to fake a smile, but also you're going to see contempt on one side of the face. So when you see a lot of one-sided facial gestures, then you're going to know oftentimes that means that they're feeling contempt. Claiming to feel one emotion and showing another is something that narcissists do all the time because it creates confusion and it gives them deniability. They can say, "No, I'm not feeling that. You're just imagining that." And that's a way of gaslighting people. Now, if you're with a narcissist who gets angry easily, you're going to see them flaring their nostrils a lot because we flare our nostrils in order to take in more oxygen. And when we're getting angry, our heart's pumping faster. We need more oxygen. And so if you're with someone who's hostile, you're going to see nostril flaring sometimes. Now, this is a subtle one. That's probably not one that's going to be as obvious as some of the later ones we're talking about, but that is something you'll see. Another one used often by a narcissist is keeping a neutral look, because then you have to imagine how they're feeling. They don't want to let you know how they feel, so they'll keep even a neutral look. And that can be very uncomfortable. They'll try to make situations uncomfortable. So if you're sitting with someone who's a narcissist, let's say that it's like a boss at work or something, and they're keeping an extremely neutral expression that seems overdone, it could be a way to control that situation, to feel above you in that situation. It could be a way to make it so that you feel like you have to say something, or you have to engage, or that you have to figure out how they're feeling. So keeping a neutral expression, while at its core doesn't sound like a bad thing, it can be used against people, and it can be used in a passive-aggressive way. Let's talk a little bit about arms. Arms are used to defend ourselves, okay? Now, one thing is that when someone's feeling open and genuine, they will leave this part of themselves open and unexposed, because This is really a place from a survival perspective that if someone attacks you here, not good. So when you're feeling defensive, oftentimes you cover this up. We also use our arms to take up space to show how dominant we are. And this is something that we see with narcissists, is that we're going to see them putting their hands on their hips, doing things to take up as much expansive space as possible. So they engage in expansive types of behaviors because they want to show how big and how important they are. So they are going to take up as much room as possible. They'll spread their legs further apart when they're standing. They'll move their arms about. They'll try to take up as much room as possible to show how important they are and to sort of lay claim to some of that territory. Another one is finger pointing. Finger pointing, we innately do not like having people point their finger at us. I don't like somebody pointing their finger at me, and it's an involuntary reaction that we don't like that feeling. And that's something that narcissists will do. They will point at people. They'll use their finger because they're trying to belittle them. So finger pointing is another one that you may automatically have a negative reaction to, but it's one that narcissists may use a lot. There's something we call steepling, and this one is the one that is the bane of my existence. I think it's dumb, I don't like it, and I did a whole video on why you shouldn't do it. But let me show you what it is, and I'll explain it. It's doing this gesture right here. I'm sure you've seen politicians do it. I'm sure you've seen people do it. You may even know somebody who does it. Hopefully you don't do it yourself, and if you do, you should stop doing it. Anyway, what it does is this makes people seem like they are an authority. People do this in order to make themselves feel self-important and to feel powerful. What we've actually seen is that in court, doing this actually makes people believe you more. And that's great if you're in a few small positions. You're a CEO, you're an expert witness. One of these things, you can use that to make people think that you're more believable, but everybody else just comes across as pompous and annoying, and you just shouldn't do this. I don't think anybody should do it. I think this is a pretentious gesture anyway. I personally don't like it because I think it's manipulative. But if you're with somebody who oftentimes does this during arguments, please don't let that affect you. Don't let that be something that makes you feel less than, because unconsciously sometimes we do. We go, well, that person must really know what they're doing. They must be very smart if they're doing that. We do that unconsciously. We don't say that out loud. But steepling is one of the goofiest body language things that I see consistently, and there are plenty of people that I think we've all seen do it. Now, one of the interesting things is I talked about how sometimes narcissists will use their hands to draw attention to themselves, but when they're lying, they will use less hand gestures. In other words, if they are, and this is true of anybody, is that when we lie, we tend to use our hands less because we want to draw less attention to ourselves. We're trying to freeze and stay hidden. So using less hand gestures is very common for people that are lying and for narcissists when they want to manipulate. Something that narcissists may do to make you feel uncomfortable is to lean in towards you, to make you feel like your space is being invaded and make them feel dominant. Like if you're at a computer, they may lean over your shoulder. They may lean into you when you're in a situation where it obviously would be uncomfortable. They will invade your space, and it can feel weird and gross, and it's not necessarily something that most people like to tolerate. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, they may do this at times and then deny that they're doing it. Well, I just want to be close to you. I'm not trying to invade your space. But if it feels wrong to you or it feels like an invasion, that should tell you that you're trying to defend yourself. If somebody that we care about leans into us and puts their arm around us or leans in when they're talking to us, it may be a source of comfort for us. If it's someone who we feel is a threat, it's going to feel very uncomfortable. Or if it's during a conversation that's heated and they lean towards us, or if they're looking over your shoulder, that's going to be invading your space, and that's intentional. It's a way to intimidate. Something you may see narcissists also do is to spread their legs when sitting. Once again, trying to take up as much space as possible. Now, some people sit like that because they're comfortable. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but there are times when people do it that's an attempt to take up space and an attempt to be dominant. So legs, when it comes to legs being spread out, standing up with your legs far apart, those are all signs of dominance. If you're having an argument with a narcissist, they may put their hands on their hips, spread their legs out, kind of like you see when you think of a police officer sometimes stands like that, which is part of their job. Their job is to be dominant. And so that type of behavior in a relationship feels very uncomfortable. When it's like a one-on-one interaction with somebody, or when it's with somebody who's a romantic partner, it feels inappropriate. When it's somebody who's in a position of authority, it's a little bit different. But it's still the same behavior, and it's still with the same purpose, which is to dominate and to feel dominant. So hopefully this helps you better understand body language a little bit. I've got so much more to share about body language. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. So I want you to like and subscribe if you're interested in finding out more, because I am going to keep releasing videos about body language. I'm going to start looking at body language in pop culture. And I really want to help everybody better understand the body language that we're seeing every single day. Last thing I want to say is that if you're in a challenging relationship and you think that it may be impacting you, you should take the quiz that I have below. It'll let you know whether or not it may or may not be impacting you in a negative way. Anyway, thanks for watching.